This video will be mock draft number 1 for the Detroit Lions in the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft. I've actually done 4 total for the Ravens and the Lions at the same time. So there is potentially some impact here when I make a Lions selection directly thereafter, making a pick for the Ravens, since for the first 2 rounds, Baltimore picks 1 selection ahead of Detroit. I've completed this one as if the Lions do not bring back CD3, someone that for me, I want to see the Lions bring back, but if not, I'd like to see the Baltimore Ravens look at signing. He's a difference maker, in my opinion, based on the films, particularly the last 5 or 6 games that he played in 2024. Someone I believe in his skill set and the commitment to being physical in a way that can oftentimes overwhelm wide receivers. I think he is the domino for the Detroit Lions offseason in terms of free agency and then the draft. It's taken me a long time to feel comfortable producing draft related content for a number of reasons. First and most importantly, I don't feel comfortable putting something out without at least an idea of the players that I'm discussing. And I still, at this moment, feel a little apprehensive about commenting on certain guys that I haven't studied yet. There's a difference between watching film and studying film. I try to study it, and sometimes my reach exceeds my grasp. In some cases here, I will comment on players that I have only watched and not studied. But in a moment, I will give you a little bit of proof and a little bit of an opportunity to study players with me if you would enjoy that. So I've been focusing on evaluating offensive line, and that has slowed down my pace significantly. But what it has allowed me to do is now develop folders and or collections of film on inside linebackers, outside linebackers, edge defenders, if you will, defensive linemen, and offensive linemen at the same time. I focused on guys like Armand Membu, Josh Simmons, Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Jonah Savignea from Arizona, if I said his name correctly, Kelvin Banks, and others. Because, well, for the Ravens and then the Seahawks as well, they need offensive line. They need to improve the offensive line drastically. Detroit's needs are very different, obviously. The Kevin Zeitler situation at right guard, can he be replaced by Christian Mahogany? Do they want to draft another guard to take over from Glasgow, or at least give them some competition/depth? They'll have an opportunity to do so, meaning Brad Holmes in the front office, if you ask me, because of where they're picking, number one, and because of what I think is a better draft for offensive linemen, particularly second, third, fourth round guys than maybe others have projected or put out there. The positions of need clearly for the Lions: defensive end, outside linebacker, corner, outside corner, pending the CD3 situation, and then guard. Like I said, who knows what happens with Zeitler, but I think you have to give credit to Brad Holmes in the front office for drafting Christian Mahogany last year in the sixth round, because he's a potential starter based on the film that we had of him playing, I think, 2 complete games in 2024. The reality is it would be great if Mike Green or James Pierce is there at 28 when Brad Holmes has to turn the card in, but I don't think they will be. If so, look, Green or Pierce, you put them opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, let them play a lot. They're better against the run than people give them credit for, and premier talents as far as pass rush skills in this draft, if you ask me. I have had Green get close to 28 in mock draft situations, but from a Ravens fan's perspective, when I have done a mock draft and controlled both teams, it's difficult for me to pass up on him at 27 for Baltimore and allow him to even get to Brad Holmes and those guys at 28. I think I've done 4 complete ones so far where I've dual controlled those 2 franchises, and 2 others where I just was able to make selections for Detroit. I actually like this draft a lot more than some other evaluators that I have heard. I don't think Brad Holmes needs a home run from like the 2023 draft class here. First of all, he doesn't own that many picks, uh, but just something between 2023 and 2024. They went heavy on corner, Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw Jr. last year. Why? Well, smart long-term investments at cornerback, and that was after bringing in CD3 and Amik Robertson. So they made sure to address corner, which was a known weakness after the NFC Championship trip to San Francisco the year before. The defensive and outside linebacker position, is it in the same territory for you? Meaning, heading into this draft 2025, does the D-end edge defender spot for Detroit look the same as corner did going into free agency/the draft 1 year ago today? Recall that they traded for CD3, I think March 11th of 2024, and I believe they traded for, I believe they signed Amik Robertson 4 days later or 3 days later. So I don't think the need is as harsh, but I think it's pretty obvious. This draft turns out pretty good in that regard, even though I take a chance here. Before I talk about that, I do want to mention something that I'm conducting, and it's part of the Patreon/Discord that I operate for Ravens and Lions fans separately, mind you, is a draft preview. I've still got some SEC film to go through for offensive line, basically LSU and some Alabama. But I've worked through Ohio State, Oregon, Arizona, Arizona State, Penn State, along with some Georgia offensive line film. It's let me see O linemen and defensive ends, linebackers, etc. I want to just show with you a shared document that I want to make available to Ravens fans and Lions fans. This was actually created originally by a person in a Patreon supporter, Jen, in our Ravens Discord. I kind of hijacked it, and I'm going to use it to share film. Essentially, it would give you, the user, the ability to check and watch film, and then also see some descriptions, short descriptions that I provide and am housing on my Google Drive. So I hope the goal is to have 15 or 20 plays for each player that you see. And as you can see, I've only got about probably 33% completed. Anyone with a hyperlink there, like Trey Amos that's selected here, there would be film inside of that link, which you'll see in a moment. Like I said, I want to share it with Ravens and Lions fans, particularly anyone in the Discord, but I'm looking for ways to share it on social media with some type of reimbursement on my end, like a $2 or $3 charge. So I have to research some websites to allow me to do that. But in any case, this is how I'm organizing my thoughts for this year's draft, with mostly O-line focus so far. Other guys, Trey Amos, Darian Porter at corner, Xavier Watts at safety, and a lot of the edge defenders that I'm really interested in. So we share clips like this in the Discord daily. As much work as I have done there, I feel like I should share it out to people in the Discord and at least offer it to people who maybe are interested in joining it. So with that being said, let's get to the first pick that I would make here. And this is a tough one because Nick Scourton was available, and that's a great option for Detroit. But in the end, the film that I had seen of Tyler Booker just kind of outweighed that decision, or tipped that decision in that regard, if you ask me. I think Scourton is a superior talent because, first of all, he's big, 6'4", 6'5", 275, 280 pounds. So drastically different than some of the other guys. He's almost like, from a size and body standpoint, a Davenport, but I don't want to bring that name up necessarily as a comparison point because of the injury issues that Davenport had. Another huge loss in 2024, obviously. I think Booker is, absolutely a day one starter at guard for 25 to 28 teams in the NFL. And I'm only omitting four or five or six, I should say, because some teams have two really good starting guards, and Booker might go there and not be a starter if he was to end up there. Presumably, if you had to roll out with Booker at left guard and Mahogany at right guard, or Booker at right guard and a guy like Glasgow at left guard, you would be fine. Some combination of Mahogany and Booker looks really appealing to me because they're lower end contracts for 3 or 4 years with high level play on the offensive line. It's a no-brainer here at 28 for me personally, because of how highly I think of Booker. But I absolutely recognize that there'll be some Lions fans that say, hey, we would take Nick Scourton and run the card up there because of how talented he is. Now in this spot, look, Jahdae Barron, Thomas, the corner from Florida State, Jihad Campbell, the inside linebacker kind of hybrid from Alabama, they were all also there. It was really, Jihad Campbell's a different kind of dude. I wouldn't have a problem with him or Scourton, like I said, however you pronounce it. But I couldn't pass up on Booker here. I recognize that some of the people listening will disagree. No problem there. In any case, Brad Holmes is going to have to address defensive end, edge defender. At this point, I think Scourton would be the highest level guy still remaining in this portion of the draft, unless for some unknown reason Pierce falls further than he should. I think guys like Pierce, Mike Green should be off the board at 15, 18, at the latest 20. For me, Booker is a potential All-Pro early in his career, meaning first couple of years, someone that I think would add to any offensive lineman, and I just couldn't pass him up. Round two, I love Trey Amos. He's a competitor. He really reminds me of Amik Robertson, except he's bigger, he's stronger, he's taller, perhaps more athletic than Amik Robertson. He's definitely, the competitiveness streak is the same. It's the same flavor of player. I love the film. How does this relate to CD3? Well, of course, if you retain CD3, then the need for corner is less severe, and you're probably not making a selection like this one. But based on the film that I had seen, Amos was too good to pass up at pick 60. I don't think he'll be there at pick 60. I just think again he's a guy that is probably gone in the 45 to 48 range. He almost kind of reminds me a little bit of Renardo Green, a player that maybe isn't a first round pick in this draft for various reasons, but has first round talent, meaning he could step into a lot of teams and start. Just on my initial impression of watching Trey Amos film compared to the other 6 or 8 corners that I have studied so far, I would say Amos is a starter on day one for 18 to 20 teams in this draft, somewhere in that range. And I recognize that there'll be different opinions on him. He's a guy who played at Ole Miss last year and then Alabama the year before. Now, what would this do? It would allow Meek Robertson to move back to that nickel slot corner position and also reunite Trey Amos with Terrion Arnold. They had played together in 2023, and Nick Saban's last year there. I think it's a good situation either way. I would advocate for bringing back CD3. I get it. If he is, then here you go somewhere else, like Landon Jackson, the defensive end from Arkansas, was there. Since you haven't addressed the edge defender position with the first round pick where I took Booker, there's still going to be some quality offensive linemen and receivers, I think, on the board at this point. Isaiah Bond, Jalen Royals were there at wide receiver when I picked Amos. Emory Jones, who's a talented tackle from LSU that I'm interested in for the Ravens in the second round if they don't make an offensive line selection in the first round and they don't bring back Ronnie Stanley, that is. Lions clearly don't need a tackle, but the type of talent they can get here from a position player standpoint, I think is someone who needs to step in and play and contribute early, and Trey Amos looks like one of those guys. So I went with corner there. I do recognize, however, that it's tough to imagine the Lions not addressing edge defender, outside linebacker until pick 101. So maybe they do something in free agency. If I looked at the numbers right, I saw somewhere between 42 and 48 million in cap space moving into free agency, but I could be wrong. And then finally, I had 2 really great options here, and I think there'll be some different opinions on the choice that I went with. So Josiah Stewart, the outside linebacker DN from Michigan, he's actually not a Michigan guy, Coastal Carolina, and he's from New York City. He ended up with, I think, 31 or 32 career sacks, 8.5 last year at Michigan. Or the other guy was Kyle Kennard, a very talented pass rusher, a little bit lighter, I think, than Stewart, 235, maybe 240 range. He put up 11.5 sacks last year at South Carolina, and there's a difference between these guys and also between Scourton. Kennard is 6'5", and you would think he'll grow into that frame a little more. And he's another guy that I'm not sure he's here at 101. I did 2 mock drafts Saturday evening into Sunday morning, and he was there both times at 101. This particular one, mock draft that I focused on, he was there the second one in a row, and it's a little surprising to me. It's tough for here because I think Stewart may get more snaps than Kennard early, but Kennard looks really interesting. In the end, I just remembered the game that Stewart dominated against Alabama in the college football playoffs last year. I don't think he registered a sack in that game, but I think it was like 7 quarterback pressures, 2 or 3 quarterback hits, and then his commitment to the football. Stewart looks like a Lion to me. Is it possible that they draft Stewart and sign someone in free agency? I would advocate for that. I don't know how much money they want to spend on defense if they bring back CD3 and look at signing an edge defender. They're going to cost a lot of money, first of all, but certainly what I've presented here right now, Trey Amos and Josiah Stewart, it may not bolster the defense enough for certain people based upon the injuries that decimated Aaron Glenn's group in 2024. It really, for me to reflect, which I still do often, it ruined a 15-2 season that should have been historic. I mean, I was telling a friend of mine the other day who's a football fan, not a Lions guy, who's asking why it bothered me so, and I said it was almost like watching a movie for 70 minutes that's just fantastic. Pure cinema greatness, great acting, plot line spectacular. And then all of a sudden, the last 15 to 20 minutes of the movie seems like it's a totally different producer. Impatient, unprepared, short-sighted. That's how that Lions 2024 season ended for me, like a movie that was great and then just left you disappointed at the end. Unfortunately, could have been a drastically different ending. That group had played so well. I mean, really from around mid to late season 2022 into 2023 and 2024. Look at the Lions' record. It's as good or better than anyone else's if you use your starting point or your cutoff point right around the midseason when Dan Campbell's group made their run in 2022, nearly making the playoffs. I get it that there'll be definite people wanting to have gone edge defender in round one. I'm still getting the sense of where Scourton fits. There's a part of me that watches him and thinks that he'll be gone at 28 too. But if you just look at the sheer numbers, some of these really good football players are going to fall. Is it going to be a Mike Green, a James Pierce, a Nick Scourton? I just watched those guys play football, particularly Scourton, and there's a lot to really like about him. He only had 5 sacks last year at Texas A&M. He had, I think, 10 the year before. There's so much talent there at the edge defender position. Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker's one of my personal favorites. Green, Pierce, Michael Williams, Landon Jackson. I wouldn't have any problem if Brad Holmes and the front office kind of looked at the draft the same way I just described, which is this, that they think the edge defenders, the ones that would come in and start on day one, will be gone by 28. And so they want to address it in free agency in some manner. I'm not even advocating for a particular player. I don't know really who's out there. My point is, with the amount of cap space that appears to be there for Detroit, it looks like a draft where having a CD3 in your pocket re-signed and then bringing in someone to possibly start opposite of Aiden Hutchinson looks like a smart investment based upon where you are at 28. I don't see Holmes trading up for the second year to get a guy he wants, in this case, a Pierce, a Green, or something like that. So I ended up going with Booker for a lot of reasons because of the film that I liked. They're both fantastic players. The Lions certainly need D-end help more than they need offensive line help. I will do another mock draft probably next weekend. That's generally the time when I can, get these finished. I haven't been able to produce much content lately at all. Number one, 2 of my children have been sick off and on. And number 2, it's been a labor of love to watch so much college film, try to organize it for myself and for others, as I showed you earlier, the shared document, but also to allow me to, in good conscience, try to produce content like this one when I have some awareness of the players and what I think is their individual skills and how they might be able to help a team like the Detroit Lions. If they're going to get back a ton of guys next year, Derek Barnes, Aleem McNeil, Malcolm Rodriguez, his injury was later in the year, so who knows. My contention is that bringing back CD3 is the first domino to start this Lions defense to look similar, even though the scheme will be different under Shepard. I have no idea. If you have a suggestion as to how I could know, feel free to let me know in the comments section. I would have no issue with them addressing D-end, edge defender in this draft and via free agency as well. I think the CD3 could end up in New York for real, reunited with Aaron Glenn. The Jets obviously have a really good corner on the other side, Ahmad Gardner, who's a Michigan native, but CD3 I think is going to have some demand on the free agent market, and so from that standpoint, I wonder if the Lions are going to have to address corner early, which is what I did here with Trey Amos. I think the Lions' needs are not easily filled, but they're more realistically filled to keep them at that Super Bowl contender spot that you guys and myself all want them to be at. This draft, I think, does so by just continuing on into the future a dominant offensive line with really a Pro Bowl, all-pro talent like Tyler Booker first, and then Trey Amos, and then Josiah Stewart. I appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoyed this video, first of all, please let me know in the comment section. If you like the style or the format, let me know. I'm all for feedback, and if there's a way I can change it. I don't show college film on my channel for a lot of reasons. If you're in my Discord or Patreon, feel free to ask, and I'll let you know there. Certainly, whatever Detroit and Brad Holmes and those guys in the front office do in free agency is going to change what I illustrated here, which there again is why I'll probably conduct a couple of these before we get to actual draft season in mid-March or April. Appreciate you guys' time.